Hi, everyone. Air here. Welcome to our Spirituality and Growth Mindset podcast today. I have a very special guest that's dear to my heart to be able to share about the diving of depths into depression. Here I have Tonia, and I'm not going to dare try to say your last name, but she is my opera singer. She's my superstar, and she has so much to share with you guys today. So let's get that last name out.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. And the pronunciation is Cianciulli, Italian. The perfect last name for an opera singer.
Exactly. And then just give a little bit more background on what kind of led you here. I know that we first met over a year ago here at Flying with Air, and Tonia just pretty much said that she was going to be my best friend, and I didn't have a choice.
I tend to do that with people I really click with immediately. Okay, you are now one of my best friends. Yeah, well, we've been coming to Miami now for like 8 years. I've been homeschooling my kids for 8 years. And so we escape Toronto in the winter and we come to Florida throughout the winter to enjoy the weather. And when we discovered your shop, I just said to my kids, like, we have to go in there and see what it's all about. And sure enough, we hit it off the bat right away.
I don't know. I'm a little bit standoffish at first. And again, she's just like, no, you're mine now. And I just accepted because she's a beautiful soul.
Aww.
And I get to tell everybody now that I know this, award-winning opera singer, songwriter. And she's way more than that, right? Like, you're way more than that. And it might be a little bit weird if, somebody like starts listening and they're like, hey, what does an opera singer or a singer-songwriter have to do with like diving into the depths of depression?
Understandable.
But you're more than that. You're an author, you are a practitioner of NLP, Heartmath, all these words that I don't know, but we plan to find out. So let's start there. What is NLP and Heartmath, and how did you get into work that would have anything to do with depression?
Well, I would have to first and foremost say I'm an artist. And so I'm an artist, and that can include all different kinds of genres, like the music writing that I do, the singing, being an author. I love to write. I love to create. And so I think that artists are naturally born with this sort of, it's like a blessing and a curse. You have this joyous side, and then you can also have this very melancholy side to you, where you feel things so insanely deeply that you're just like, my heart can't handle this. And you just start welling up with tears and you have to go off and create something to describe it, or to process it. And so now I've gotten off track completely and forgot your original question. But first and foremost, I would have to say that I'm an artistic being. And with artistic beings, I think that it's very important for us to equip ourselves with the self-care that we need in order to help ourselves get through just even daily life.
I'm with you on that 100%. As someone that would say, yes, I'm in the artistic realm, but I'm also in the business, realm, and trying to balance that on a daily basis for me. And I feel like you always have to put on a show to an extent. Like, ironically, we're on a show. I feel like diving into the depths of depression was going to be something I wanted definitely in the first 5 episodes, because the people that we're talking to, especially the women artists that we're talking to, they kind of have to close this all in all the time and only show like the pretty side, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that melancholy, though, at least in my past, when I go to create things, and I love to paint, I love, different types of forms of mediums, that I actually create some of the most beautiful, authentic, and relatable things after the melancholy.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's both a blessing and a curse, because it's a curse because, you can't run from yourself. You're in your head all the time. You can't escape your own voice unless you go drugs or alcohol or whatever.
Escapism.
We might even talk about that later. Exactly. But, we have access to both. And not everyone can take such intense feelings and experiences and morph them into a song or a painting or a poem. It's whatever genre you like. And so it's like artists, what I came to realize on an even deeper level was throughout the pandemic, we are the storytellers of our generations, of our times. It's the artists that are, you know, sort of feeling everything on such a deep level and putting it out to the world of like, here, this is how I process this or how I express this, and this might bring you comfort too. You know?
So how would you, everyone I feel like knows what depression feels like. After COVID, just like you said, after the pandemic, I feel like no matter who you are on some degree, you know what anxiety feels like. You know what it's like to have prolonged sadness, which is what depression is classified as, is 3 to 6 months of prolonged sadness. And that loneliness, that it just all comes in together. And it even makes me tighten up in my heart chakra, right? Like in that chest. Yeah. I saw you holding your chest.
Yeah.
So other than that, you use art to be able to not like spiral into that. But you also mentioned like, hey, some people don't have artistic type of ways to be able to express themselves and to release it.
Right. So then they use what we put out. They benefit from what us artists put out, which is why like it's disgusting that the arts are always so underfunded and always the first thing to go, because art is everywhere. Like, what were we doing during the pandemic? We were binge watching Netflix and YouTube videos and listening to our favorite albums and like looking at and taking from the benefits of art. Everything is art.
I feel like I lost maybe like 36 hours of my life with TikTok videos during the pandemic, because like I feel like that was all I was doing was listening. Her name was Zoe, actually. She's just like this really, she reminds me of Samantha from Sex and the City. And I feel like I watched her on TikTok and she's the only person that made me laugh that entire time.
And comedy is a form of art too. Like it's everywhere. You can't escape it, you know? So you know, people might complain about artists or artists are always starving and you can't make a living at that. Why would you want to go into that field? Excuse me, do you not benefit from art on like every moment of your daily basis generally? Like stop poo-pooing it. Stop complaining.
I love like that's your job.
You cannot live. You can't survive without art. Try. Go ahead and try.
Try to go in traffic without listening to music of any sort. I feel like there'd be a lot more wrecks, or at least angry drivers. Okay, so depression, it manifests in so many different ways. Right? Totally. So how I go through depression or how I go through like deep sadness is going to be different from you.
Exactly.
So with outside of like spiraling, right? How does depression manifest in your life, and like how has it affected maybe your mindset especially?
Well, you know, I'm 47 right now. I don't mind sharing my age. When I was younger, I started noticing it, but I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know it was anxiety. I didn't know it was like waves of depression. I literally just thought something's wrong with me.
And when you say younger, do you mean like childhood or like teens?
As a young teen? And I'm sure, like, I don't remember too much prior to like 10 years old, maybe, let's say. And maybe that's because I blocked some of it out because my parents got divorced and there was definitely some, you know, trauma caused by that. But I just would find myself walking around feeling like I remember saying to my mom one time when I was really young, like, if you came to me right now and said, do you want to go to the circus or a fair or whatever? Like, I just would be like, no, I don't care. And like, obviously something like that would appeal to a young kid, but it was like, it just was like, I felt so almost drowned or like dampened my mood that I couldn't even get excited about things that you should be excited about. So that's sort of when I first started noticing it. I would say the first time I really truly realized that I had a problem coping with depression and anxiety was shortly leading up to the time that I was pregnant, and then definitely once I had my children. It wasn't just postpartum depression. It was like, it's like almost everything started caving in and like coming to the surface as if to say, you need to deal with your shit right now because you brought these children into the world and you want to be the best mom and woman and person you can for them and for yourself. Because who wants to go through life feeling like this? No one does. But it's like, then you have children and you got to be there for someone else and you catch yourself sitting there staring at the blank wall and not like really unmotivated to like just even get up and brush your teeth or make your bed or get dinner on the table because you know your husband's on his way home and he's worked hard all day long, and you just feel like I've just sat here doing nothing, but I feel completely paralyzed, you know? So I started looking for a therapist, and I just started throwing myself into everything I could do in the self-help world, whether it was attending seminars, reading self-help books, finding amazing circles of women that were, you know, dealing with similar things that I was dealing with, but they were constantly, you know, sort of taking action in their life and still pursuing their dreams. And it just sort of snowballed. It was like I was like on a mission to heal myself. And I just would say to certain people I felt safe with, tell me what to do. What's worked for you? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I went and I did this course. So I went and did my training for neuro-linguistic programming, which is basically the study of the human brain and why we do the things we do and how we seek out purposely, you know, the things that stand out for us. Our brain has a filtering system. Studying, you know, human excellence. And then it was like, you know, I did my training as a teacher trainer with the Institute of Heartmath, which they really work with a certain method of connected breathing and bringing to your mind things that bring you joy, and just sort of meditating around that, bringing your heart and your mind and your emotions into coherence to sort of get on they have these heart wave measuring systems to make your heart rate smooth. You know, if you hook yourself up to a heart rate monitor and you're having a panic attack or something, it's all like, imagine like jagged lines, right? So it's like with this technique of breathing, you can smooth out your heart rate. You can, you know, bring your breathing back down to your diaphragm and just calm yourself, like find that inner peace, right? Mm-hmm. And from there, we can make better decisions for ourselves and do more things that show ourselves self-love, I think.
When I think of you, I always think of the heart chakra. Like, and it's not just your red nail polish that you always like signaturally have and I've adopted, but I always think of the heart chakra. And I know hearts are like a big part for you. Like
totally.
Even your Instagram is like the obsession of heart.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like uncovering that. And you kind of started hinting at that whenever you were talking about, I don't even know what way you would call it, but like a toolkit, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You said you started reaching out to people and you're like, what worked for you?
Yeah.
Right? So like, what is in, you know, Tonia's toolkit?
Yeah, in my toolkit. And that's another thing, like reaching out to people. Don't just reach out to anybody. Mm-hmm. You want to reach out to people who are doing what you want to do. And
that's actually something I know of.
Yeah.
It's like, don't ask advice from people you don't want to be like.
Exactly. or people that have not gone where you've gone, or at least tried to go where you're trying to go. Mm-hmm. So in my toolkit, and it's obviously going to be different for everybody, I think, you know, the top sort of things for me are, number one, I would say, are the relationships in my life with the women that I have in my life that are very genuine. They have my best interests at heart. They hurt if I hurt. And you can usually tell who those people are. One of them for sure is my mom. Another one is my daughter. We have an incredibly close relationship. Mm-hmm. And I have lots of other amazing girlfriends that it's like, okay, I'm struggling with this. I'm going to call that girlfriend who's also married and has kids. Or I'm going to call this girlfriend who also is pursuing an opera career. And reach out to those people to have those really genuine heart-to-heart conversations.
That's what I did with you last week, or not even last week, maybe a few days ago. I pulled a chapter out of your book, or your toolkit, if you will. She has a book too, but we'll talk about it later. I pulled a chapter out of your, now I can't even speak anymore. It's a little bit anxiety, you know, about some relationships. I'm a single woman, and I didn't know, you know, what my next step was. Mm-hmm. And I'm in this transformative chapter of my life. And I was trying to pull, you know, one of your tools out. And I'm like, who can I call? Because I don't want to spiral, right? Like that's the opposite of the whole thing that we want to get away from is that spiraling into that darkness or that depression, especially for too long. So I called you because I was like, okay, this woman, you know, I look up to you, even though like we're friends, but I still look up to you, right? And I'm like, she has, you know, the type of lifestyle, like with family, and she has, you know, a great marriage, and, you know, they've been together a long time, and like I've seen this beautiful creation of, you know, your heart,
Aww.
right? And I was just like, okay, if I'm going to call anybody, I don't want to call, you know, someone I don't want to be like, right? Like, I didn't need the pep talk of like, you know, single ladies. I needed the pep talk of like, you know, he's out there, right? Like the love of your life is out there, right?
Yeah.
So, and you were really there for me during that part. So like that helped me from spiraling, right? So that being your number one toolkit.
And the thing is, like with spiraling, you know, you learn more about yourself, you get to know your patterns better. And the thing with spiraling is you do want to try and catch it before you kind of spin out of control, because it's such a fine line, right? And so it's like, yeah, you can write it out if you need to at first, when you first start trying to work through what you're going through, and write out, okay, these are the things that make my heart feel good, that make me feel happy, that kind of bring a spring back into my step when I'm about to spiral downward. These are the things that make me feel good. Mm-hmm. And write the list out for yourself. Call mom, call air, call, you know, whoever it is. Sit down and journal for 10 minutes and put a timer on. Go for a jog, put the music on and scream and sing along to it. Mm-hmm. Like whatever those things are, and they're going to be different for everyone. Like some of us might have overlapping things that we love.
Yeah.
And the thing is, not everything is going to work every time. So it's like you have to have a big enough sort of toolkit built up that, you know, you're plotting along, everything's going okay, and then all of a sudden you feel triggered, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And it feels like you're being taken down all over again. You're like, I thought I healed that shit. Mm-hmm. No, you didn't. Okay, this journaling is not working for me right now, or the gym is not working for me right now. Go, you know, set an appointment, find a psychologist, or
go to the spa.
Go do some self-care things. Like, don't go, maybe if you want to go buy yourself a new dress or whatever, but I mean self-care in the sense of like truly like, okay, spa, you're taking care of your body. Go to a yoga class. Go buy yourself a new great book. Like things that aren't just like, you know, you can go get your nails done and then you walk back in the house and the shit hits the fan and it's like all of that sort of inner peace you had is flushed down the toilet. Mm-hmm. But if you do other things that are a little more, like a little deeper in nature, I think that those effects stick with you longer and sustain you for longer. So, you know, it's a good idea to take some time and just sit there and think, what are the things that bring me joy? Let's just make a list of it and freaking stick it on the fridge. And the next time you sense yourself downwards, you know what? I'm going to force myself to call this person right now, or I'm going to force myself to sit down and read 5 pages of this uplifting book. Mm-hmm. You know, you can treat it like a prescription.
That's what I did with you. I didn't even realize that this toolkit that you're speaking of, maybe it's because I'm with you so much now that you've rubbed off on me a little bit. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's pretty good actually. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. So one of the few things I noticed is, I did call you, right? Mm-hmm. I did that whole reach out to a girlfriend that, you know, is in my inner circle and cares about me and wants like the best for me. But that wasn't the first thing I did. Mm-hmm. If I'm being, you know, straightforward, the first thing I did, and this is where you and me opposite, because I was like, I'm going to go do yoga, right? Like, that's my, you know, go-to. If I don't do yoga daily, I'm not the person you want me to be.
Yeah.
And the yoga didn't work for me that day. Like while I'm in my practice, I'm like, you know, stumbling and, you know, just, I'm not there.
Yeah.
So the yoga didn't work. And then for me also, and I love the pun because of what you just said, nature.
Yeah.
Right? Like for you, it was nature as in like your soul, your body, your essence.
Yeah.
For me, it's like physical mother nature.
Oh, absolutely.
And so like hiking, going to the ocean, I know is a big thing for you.
It's so grounding.
So like, those type of aspects, like completely different, because I know that I'm like, hey, Tonia, do you want to go do yoga? And you're like, some days.
I'm not getting out of bed at 8 a.m. or 6 a.m.
But you'll call me at 6 a.m. Like, that's the funny part. is like listening to that. And for me, even meditation. So I think I was telling you about an app, like the top 10, what was it called? 10%, like 10% happier, I think is their tagline. But meditation for me and getting my mind and my self like centered, whether it's late at night or whether it's early morning, has been beneficial. And there's spiritual teachers out there. Do you listen to any certain like teachers or gurus? You talked about self-help books.
I've mostly, I haven't really gotten too much into listening to people who meditate like on YouTube or certain podcasts. I do listen to like self-help podcasts like Jay Shetty and Mel Robbins. I love those. They're probably my top two people. Yeah. She's just so real and down to earth.
Just go do it.
And that's what people need when you're in this struggling space. You don't need some glammed up person like, oh, we just did this. And like makes the person feel like, oh, maybe if I had their life, then I wouldn't be depressed. No, you can have their life. You can have the most glamorous life. You can have it all and still find yourself sitting there staring into space saying, what is wrong with me? I can't move my body and I feel like I'm in quicksand. So, but books, I love Elizabeth Gilbert. I love Jeff Brown, Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way. That's who I get the morning pages from every morning. Right now I'm trying to write for like 10 minutes with, I listen to Alanis Morissette's meditation album, and it just, her album is enough to just sort of quiet the voice inside of me that's like, this is garbage. This isn't going to work. Why are you even doing this? What am I going to write? Blah, 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 blah. It's like the music calms me and then the writing just starts to flow. And before you know it, you're making connections, sort of aha moments that you wouldn't have if you hadn't forced yourself to sit down and write. So yeah, books are like, I love books. I'm always, and I will reread the same ones over and over again if I need to, sometimes if I really need that message. And you can read a book more than once and get different things out of it because we're always growing and changing. So it's like what applied to you when you first read it may not apply anymore, but you're going to find another nugget. And I've had people say to me like, why are you always reading these books? Like they basically all say the same thing. Yeah, okay, fair enough. A lot of them do. It's a lot of regurgitated, maybe put in another way. But
we're all humans.
Exactly. Like, well, how different can it possibly be? But it's one of those things that keeps me from downward spiraling. It's like I read something that's so uplifting and so like an aha moment, and I'm just like, oh, just sort of fills my heart, and it's okay, I can carry on for another day. Or sometimes I can only carry on for another 10 minutes and then I have to pick myself up again. And that's the thing. It can come in waves. But there's no limit to how many times you can wipe your slate. Just get up and pull your socks up and try it again. Just keep clearing the canvas, clearing the canvas.
Our entire first episode was about what you just said. Was the fact that going through suicidal tendencies, which, that's depression spiraling, right? Yeah. It's like, that is the end of the line whenever you start to have those type of thoughts. Right. And they start to kind of capture, your mind, right? Yeah, yeah. I always think of depression as like, it's not cancer, right? There's no physical cell in your body that's like taking over, but it's like your mind is almost destroying you. Yeah. And if your mind is destroying you going through depression, then how do you like conquer your mind, right? Like that's supposed to be the one thing on your side. If you break your leg, okay, sorry, but the leg is going to be fine. It's not going to like not go back together, right? It's going to reprogram itself. But the mind being like the most powerful part, depression just kills it. It's the worst disease I think to have when it comes to you lose control. Yeah.
You can rewire your mind. A really great friend of mine, Tonia Cianciulli, wrote a book called Undermine. I think it's seven different ways that we self-sabotage ourselves. And in that book, she talks a lot about rewiring your brain. So I do think it's possible. Like what nugget she always says is what fires together, wires together.
What fires together, wires together.
I'm pretty sure that's it. And so it's like any habit that we get into. We keep firing it, we keep firing it, and it starts to wire. It like creates a new neural pathway in your brain. And we did study a little bit of that in NLP, but it's consistency, right? Mm-hmm. You can't just go. It's consistency with everything, whether it's my practice in opera and singing, or yoga, or working out in the gym. You can't just go to the gym for one day or 1 week, or go to yoga for 1 day, or do vocalizations for 1 day and expect that all of a sudden you're going to have this flexible range in your body or your vocal cords or whatever. Mm-hmm. You have to be consistent to see growth and to see these new changes. And so it's the same with if you're fighting depression. You have to have things set up in your life that will keep you from failing and keep you from downward spiraling. So it's like, put all those things in place. Know your go-to people. Know the things that bring you joy. Know the things that help you when you're having those moments where it's like, oh God, I really see the dark tunnel now. It's coming. Like, because you know when it's coming, mm-hmm. right? And it's like, no, I don't want to go there again. And it's like, okay, get up, make your bed. And some days it's just the tiniest micro step, like just make your bed, or just brush your teeth, or brush your hair, put a little bit of makeup on. Like the tiniest things then often lead to another baby step, that leads to another baby step, that leads to another baby step. And before you know it, you're just sort of like, okay, I got this. Like maybe I didn't accomplish everything today that I wanted to do. I got up, made my bed, did a couple things on my to-do list, feel like I didn't just get taken down and spend the whole day in bed feeling sorry for myself or feeling completely paralyzed. And sometimes it is just talking to yourself and saying, just do this one muscle. Like just do this one tiny thing for yourself and then see how you feel.
I want to get your feedback on something. Mm-hmm. One of the toolkits I've always been told about, and I've tried to practice it, and I'm not that strong at it. I want to be very vulnerable in the fact that people always are telling me in these self-help books or on these podcasts that gratitude is the killer of depression. But when I'm going through those mood swings or those deep dives, like gratitude and expressing that for, the roof over my head, or, I got beautiful little golden doodle at home, like that can be really, hard for me. Is that something that when you're writing, or like when you are reaching out, or is that something that you put in your toolkit, or do you think, hey, it's still valid, but you just don't use it for yours?
I mean, I've definitely found myself over the years sitting down and like, okay, sit down and write what you're grateful for, because you're telling yourself right now your life sucks, it's over, it all feels doom and gloom. And so I'll sit down and write a gratitude list, and sometimes I feel like I'm just going through the motions. I'm like, yeah, okay. And it doesn't always work. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes I feel like I need to dig a bit deeper. And usually what I like to do then is, I always find that if I'm really struggling, I like purposely seek out someone else. Mm-hmm. Like I will message a friend who I know that struggles too, and just be like, how are you? Like, even when you called me the other night, like I've been up and down since January. I don't know what it is with January. I think we're in February already.
I was like, it's February 1st.
But like, even when I got off the phone with you, I felt so much better just by being there for you. And it made me feel purposeful and useful. And that can be enough sometimes to just snap you back into
helping somebody else.
You know what? That feels really good. I'm glad I have an amazing friend that I can even do that for.
Yeah, because she doesn't know what's going on half the time. To be honest with you. So I want to go into like 3 different categories here. So you really covered, your toolkit for yourself, right? But our listeners know now that you're not just you. You have a family. So as a mother, and I know that this is one of your focuses, because actually I'll let you announce, what are you studying currently?
Yeah, so I decided to get my master's in counseling psychology at 47 years old, 46.
But it works. And like, that's one of the main reasons why I was like, she's going to be great for this episode, is like, she has this artistic, track record, but also she's kind of decided, 40 is, I'm just gonna call it 40. Sure. But like 40 is not the end of the road, right? So
God, no.
you just completely like switched, tracks.
Yeah, so. Like I think again, coming down to being an artist, we're sort of in that world already of being very aware of our feelings and how we impact other people. I think a lot of us artists are empaths. We really take on what other people are feeling and going through, and we can sense that and be of help and service to other people. Then it sort of like just followed a natural progression, I guess, because I was trying to help myself and better myself for my two kids, which are now almost 15, 16. I went and did the training in neuro-linguistic programming. I went and did my teacher training at the Institute of Heartmath. And then I can't remember, I got this email in my inbox one day from Yorkville University in Canada, and they were talking about this Master's in Counseling and Psychology program, and it was like Chinese torture. Like it kept popping in my mind. It just wouldn't leave me. I was like, maybe this to this. So I discussed it with my husband, because of course it's a big financial commitment.
Yeah, Master's.
And yeah. So he's like, he was totally supportive. He's just like, if you want to go back to school and knock yourself out, go for it. I'm like, okay, great. I'll take that as a go. And I just find it so interesting, and it's helping me. And as a result, I think I'm able to help my kids more.
But your focus was in teenagers, right?
Yeah,
teenagers, depression and anxiety.
Yeah, I'm absolutely focusing. The more I go through it, the more I realize I really am focusing and want to focus a lot on teens, adolescents, anxiety and depression. And thankfully, you helped me with one of my major assignments last year in what was that course again?
Clinical case studies.
Oh,
something of that regard.
Like, yeah,
something I'm strangely good at.
Yeah,
but more importantly,
really good at analyzing studies. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm a skeptic. So of that program so far, or like Heartmath or NLP, I know that we might have mothers that are listening, even though I'm not a mother yet. Is there anything particularly through those programs that you've been able to apply to your kids directly? And obviously, I want to keep it confidential because I love both of them. But
I would say the number one thing is to be compassionate and to be open-minded and compassionate, and really listening is so important. Like so many times we're listening in order to reply, and we have our reply already in our head while the person is sharing with us. And it's like, to be a psychologist, of course, you want to be able to reply to them and help them work through it. But so much of it is just being so present and making that person feel like they are the only person in your world right now, and just be with them. And I think that's what our teenagers need a lot of as well, is, there's a time and a place for, let me help you with this, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. But so often I think that we rush in to make it better and help, and when really all they need is to be listened to and not judged, and just to, it's gotta be really hard. Like, I'm so sorry you're going through that right now, and that's gotta be really hard to go through. And what else do you want me to know? Is there anything you want me to know? Is there anything how can I support you? And just really listening and being compassionate. I saw this meme on Instagram recently where mom pulled into the driveway and her daughter was basically laying on the driveway having a panic attack. Just pulled into the driveway, parked the car, got out on the driveway and laid down and hugged her daughter and just laid there.
I think you sent me that.
Yeah,
actually.
I probably sent you that.
Yeah.
I started crying because it's like, that's all anyone really wants. Most people know how to solve their own problems and what to do next.
Or what they should do.
Or what they should do, exactly. But like sometimes you just need someone to lay with you or sit with you and hold you or look at you or, a soft touch and just listen.
Do you think that there's anything with teenagers, because obviously I'm not a teenager anymore. You're not a teenager anymore. We've had those years. We've moved forward. But I see your daughter, and I see a lot of, the customers that we have at Flying with Air, they are teenagers.
Yeah.
And they're very unique teenagers too, because we're a very kind of niche, metaphysical,
Absolutely.
Herbalism, these type of stories, not where, all the cool kids always hang out. I think we're the cool kids, but that's neither here nor there right now. But I feel that your childhood and my childhood and my teenage years and your teenage years were so different. And I have several employees that I've had over the years that are teenage girls or teenage boys, and they battle a certain level of depression that I don't know that I necessarily had during that time in my life. Is there something in their toolkit that maybe isn't as applicable to someone that's like an adult woman that you would suggest for them? Because they might not be as eager to like write it all down.
I mean, I definitely think, listen, social media is a double-edged sword. I like to use it for my music. I like to use it to promote my music, or when I put out my first book. Otherwise, I will post pictures of arts that I buy, just things that I'm like, if I'm going to contribute anything, at least I want it to be uplifting and loving and that's positive. But I didn't think about that or whatever. But it can be so dangerous because it's just constantly comparing. And in social media, it's just basically a highlight reel of people's lives. And you don't know how many times that girl sat and took that selfie a million times over again and then probably filtered it. Or, you catch the pictures from her vacation or this, that, and the other, and you just think, oh, wow, they must really have the perfect relationship or the most perfect life. And it really looks like they're, killing it. But they could be the most depressed person ever behind closed doors. And that's what's heartbreaking. There's so many, I didn't grow up with cell phones and social media. So these kids are growing up with this stuff where they just think this is normal.
Yeah. I grew up with a Nokia. You probably remember those, but I know if I asked your daughter, she will.
Yeah, that was my first phone after I had already had my kids, and then I discovered I could send a text message on. I was like, whoa!
I was just playing Snake, to be honest with you. Like, that shows my age. I was just playing Snake.
That's so funny. But yeah, it can be so dangerous. And so, I know my daughter got completely off social media. She found that. It's just like this whole comparison thing. It's just like overstimulation, and you get sucked in, and before you know it, you've wasted a half an hour or an hour, and then you really feel like crap.
5 to 6 hours on TikTok.
Yeah, like if you're depressed, you're going to be even more depressed if you just mindlessly scroll through Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Then it's like, then you're going to guilt yourself. Well, I just wasted an hour of my life that I could have just even gone for a 20-minute walk and made myself feel so much better. So I think, is it realistic to expect our kids to get off social media? Probably. But I would say that a lot of teens need their own therapist.
Okay. So really you have like 2 things in there, actually.
I guess.
You had one where you take away, which I don't know if that's like the anti-toolkit, right? Right. Because you're taking like something out.
Yeah.
But now you just flipped it, right? Like to have their own psychiatrist or to have their own psychologist.
I think that's really important because then they feel that they have someone who doesn't know anything about them and who's just interested in getting to know them and listening. And they have 100% confidentiality, obviously, unless the psychologist or psychiatrist is worried that they could harm themselves or something. They have to report that. But, it's a space for them to go and just let and dump it all out. My mom this, or my dad that, or this girl at school, or that kid, and just, feel like they have someone that's actually presently listening to them. I just think everyone should have a psychologist.
I actually want to touch base on that a little bit. So we live in, the United States, right? Our healthcare system is, at times really great, and at times, not so great.
Right.
I found that even with health insurance, like some of these psychiatrist bills, are $160 a session. Yeah. So I personally wasn't able to seek out, a psychiatrist or a psychologist when I was going through some of these dark transitions. But I was able to find mentors and, people kind of going back to what you said in the beginning is like, who do you want to be like, right?
Yeah,
Or where do you want to go? So I purposely, outside of toolkit that we both discussed, the yoga, the writing, the artistic nature, I had to go and find people and just kind of be like, hey, how can I help you? Like, my name is Air. I yes, the element, like the whole 9 yards explain. And I had to seek out some of those, almost clawing my way out of depression.
Yeah.
But I didn't have access to the psychiatrist. Like, by all means, if I could talk to a professional and sit down and be like, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is how school was, or this is how, that trauma was for me, or that relationship was for me. But I had to kind of think outside the box. And for those families out there that can't necessarily, afford a psychologist or afford a psychiatrist, I feel like that's the next best bet. So it's like, your daughter wanted to learn about the metaphysical. So you went and hunted down a woman.
I did. I was like, you know what? You are going to take my daughter under your wing.
And that was perfectly splendid, because that was also very healing for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people don't realize that when you're working off of, those low energy vibrations or that depression frequency, that you can have cross healing.
Absolutely.
She brought me so much more enlightenment and honestly faith in our young kids. Because I was like, wow, this woman, she cares, this young lady, she cares about politics. She cares about expressing and human rights and all these different things. And that was very healing towards, my anxiety and my depression, because I'm like trying to fight the good fight. It doesn't always work, right? Or it doesn't feel like it's working. And that's how we get these spirals.
Yeah, I think that we can definitely help each other heal, and I think that it has to be. I've read a lot of Brené Brown as well, Daring Greatly and Gifts of Imperfection, and she always stresses to only share with people that you can be your most vulnerable self with, and you're not going to be shamed.
Can you repeat that just so I hear that one more time?
Okay, let's see if I can remember it. To share with people that you can be your vulnerable self with, where they're not going to shame you for saying, example could be like, I feel really depressed, I don't know why. Oh, how could you be depressed? You have such an amazing life. You have this, you have that. Like, I don't even know why I'm talking to you. You're already not safe here. You're just gonna, I just needed something.
Like a deflection.
But yeah, how could you dare do like that? Or let's say you go to your mom share something, and then they get defensive and, oh, are you telling me great, I'm a horrible mom? Like, that's the worst. That's the last thing your kid needs to hear. They just want to be listened to. And as parents, sometimes we need to own our own shit and take responsibility. We're not perfect, and I think right now we're living in such an aware society. It's almost like there's no excuses anymore. You know what's right and what's wrong.
It's out there now.
It's out there, right? You can look up anything these days and know how to properly have a conversation with someone and make them feel better or whatever.
Yeah, if you care, yeah, for sure.
But so finding someone that you feel comfortable with, that you can be vulnerable with, is not going to shame you. Looking for mentors is honestly such an amazing tool to have. And you can have multiple mentors. You can I could have a mentor for my music. I could have a mentor for my writing.
I have 5. I always have 5 mentors for every aspect of my life. That's what keeps me
that's amazing.
Going.
And I've taught self-care classes to artists before, and one of the things I talk about with them is having almost like a board of directors of your heart, your soul. So write out a list. Who's on your board of directors? Who do I go to when I need help financially? Or who do I go to when I need inspiration help? Or I'm just feeling not good enough today, or help with my music, or whatever it is. And write down those mentors. And that's another thing you can go back to when you feel like you're starting to slip. It's like, oh, I got triggered because I saw someone on Instagram post that their career's going so greatly.
Or they have the new baby.
And they have the new baby and I don't. And okay, I'm really triggered and I'm going to downward spiral. You know what? I'm going to call this so-and-so person mentor and have a talk to them before I completely drag myself through the mud.
And that's what I want to kind of highlight on. I kind of, to wrap this all up, is the fact that you are someone that connects the heart to people. right?
Mm-hmm.
And you do that through your music, you do that through, you know, your future practice, you do that through your children. And again, all I think about is like your heart chakra. Like
Aww.
I assigned a chakras to everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You are the heart chakra,
Aww,
like the essence. So I want to just like highlight you for a moment and talk about, you know, you have an album coming out,
mm-hmm.
and I know you have music coming out that relates to anxiety and depression and overcoming these type of things. So like, give me like a little bit of a snippet. Like, I mean, if you want to sing, you can sing.
No, that's okay. But
like, tell me a couple of tracks. Like, tell me what they're about.
Yeah. So, I have a new album coming out this year. The first piece I released was in the fall of just before 2023, and it was called Churchyard Roses, and it was about sort of the anguish that my grandmother went through losing a child to drown. He was only 4, and what made me really want to write about that was, as a mom myself, I was like, how did she even drag herself out of her bed every day after losing a child?
That would be hard. That would be
devastating. And back then, they didn't have the resources that we have these days. So kudos to her. But more so on the topic of anxiety and depression, I wrote a song called A Thousand Cries. And it's just sort of like living through those waves and seeing it, here we are again, seeing it coming. Even though you're surrounded by 1,000 friends and people that love you, you can still feel incredibly alone, isolated, and depressed. And, you know, my daughter goes through anxiety and whatnot as well. We have really amazing conversations together. And so part of the song was like, I was writing that song sort of to like my inner child and also my child. And so we just shot the video for it last week on the beach during sunrise. And I think it's going to be a really beautiful and touching video with like metaphors and symbolism. Just being there for our kids and just the journey that we go through, that whole journey that we go through. And, you know, peeling back, there's like just things that we did that sort of like metaphors of like peeling back the layers of the onion. Like that is, you know, that's what it's like going through therapy and what it's like going through life, frankly. You're constantly peeling back the layers, discovering new things, healing different things. And so that's just one of the main ones. There's a few others that sort of
we don't want to give it all away.
But it's my first all original album, and I've done other albums, covers and classical music and stuff, but this one is like obviously very near and dear to my heart because it's all original. And I think like simple but poignant lyrics, and you know, it's been something that's helped me heal, and so hopefully it's something that, you know, other people listen and they can resonate and like that too. And there is hope, or just even
relating is
finding
everything.
Allies, right? Like find your tribe, find your allies. Like you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to muscle your way through. And you know, we go around like, how are you? Oh, great. Like really,
I'm fine.
Like you're dying
not falling
inside.
apart. Life is fine. So tell me, where do we find it? Like, I know where to find you, so I'll find the album right away. But like, do you want to share like your website, you know, the album name, you know, social media? Like, how do I find it?
Sure. So my website is wisharts.ca, and I'm on Instagram under my handle right now is My Heart Session, or you can just look up Tonia Cianciulli. Dare to try and spell my last name.
I'll put it in the show notes, don't worry.
Yeah.
That one, I've known you a year and I still am like, ooh, my Italian's not that great.
Yeah. So. My maiden name was so much easier. But my music that I've released over the last few years is on, you know, Spotify. So it's pretty easy to find anyone these days, right?
Yeah, if you really try, that's the scary part. If you really try, you can find us, especially since I'm putting you on a podcast.
Right.
That would probably help. So thank you so much for being
absolutely.
my friend, for being my heart chakra, for, you know, having my back when I cry. I feel from the heart, I wanted you to be on this podcast because I knew you had true value when it came to just expanding that and amplifying that. And I know that you have that toolkit, and I'm glad that we got to go through every aspect of it. And I like to show you off. I like to show off my friends too. So like definitely the album comes out in February.
So I believe that the video and song of Thousand Cries will come out sometime in February, and I'm just going to be doing like a slow release through the year, but the full album will probably be out this fall.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm going to milk it, you know, because they're all such important topics to me.
Mhm.
It's like you put an album out these days, it's just like whatever, it just falls on deaf ears. I really want to take my time and like really get my messages out there, because I believe that we, you know, need to band together and all be part of the conversation.
I'll be part of that journey.
Yeah.
And I know everyone else listening will be part of that journey. So thank you so much, Tonia.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to sign off with the fact that it is Tonia's birthday. And if I was a decent singer, I would sing happy birthday to you. But instead, we're just going to tell everybody that it is your birthday and hope that they, you know, give out some birthday wishes, maybe on social media. But
thank you so much.
With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and hopefully you learned a little bit more and that this episode is completely different than everything else that we are launching within the spiritual and growth mindset. But the darker topics are just as important as the light topics. And again, you don't know the darkness, you'll never know the light. So this is super valuable. Tune in for, you know, the next episode. And if you want to learn more about Tonia or me, then you can find us at Flying with Air. Yay.